Paul Venice. Did somebody say comeback? He's back in training. Do you know something? I'm not the world's most clued up person on K1 mixed martial arts. Alex Reid, a friend of mine, knows quite a lot about it. He'd actually heard of Paul before I kind of brought him up. He said, "Is that the kid up north knocking everyone out?" Was the first words I think we ever spoke. And obviously, everyone's aware of the Paul Venice story. Bullied kid, dragged up in South. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Didn't mean that to. If you're watching Paul, it doesn't sound as bad as what I meant was. You brought up in the tough area of South Bank with loving parents. Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Venice, if you're watching, I didn't mean that. And obviously, Paul ended up in prison, going down the wrong path, addictions, all this kind of thing. Went into prison, found God, got into training. Well, really, before he got into training, he got into white-collar boxing. And when you look at some of the footage with Paul from like years ago when he's first starting out, I mean, boxing's my, it's a big passion of mine. I'm quite clued up on the game. Used to box with my face years ago, so... but anyway, I kind of know football and boxing are my sports. It's not really K1, it's not really for me. But Paul kind of got into that. And when you watch the footage of Paul in his fights, you kind of see a picture of youth. This youth kind of really rough around the edges, extremely raw, savage power, knockout power. But technically, he wasn't really the best. So obviously, he what's that word? Graduated. You know what I mean? Kind of graduated into a sport, the K1, which was more him. You know, obviously where it's anything. It's knees, elbows. It's a bit barbaric for my liking. I'm more into the football. I'm more into boxing. The Lord Marcus of Queensberry rules. Boxing's a gentleman's sport. But nonetheless, it's what he did in that sport is, you've got to really take your hat off to him, because he started off late, really. Never, so what was he, in his 20s? And he became North East champion, British champion, European, and in the world. He won like titles. Vitaly Klitschko won in the super heavyweight division, and Paul Venice is a big lad. He's 6 foot, 19.5, probably 20 stone. But he was very small for a super heavyweight. I watched a fight of his yesterday. And it was probably, I've seen his knockouts, but it was probably one of the first ones where I've actually sat and watched and studied it. And he was facing a guy called Lucas, I forget, Parabic or something like that. Big monster of a guy, about 6'8", 18 stone. Southpaw, and literally when the box, within seconds, the guy ran over and literally kicked Paul in the face, and I was like, oof, like, yeah, that's it's a real brutal sport. So for him to get at the top of that level, to become a world champion, it beggars belief, really. But he did it, and he's back in training. He's been retired now for 5 or 6 years, I think. He's 35, and the guy who we've just been talking about, Lucas. Anyway, his only one loss was actually to Paul Venice. And he's actually a world champion. He's never ever lost apart from to Paul Venice. And this guy is still fighting now, like 41, 42 or something. And he's a world champion. And Paul's actually beaten him. So, you know, I think what Paul said to me yesterday was, the sport of K1, it's a lot of the champions, they're in the late 30s. So, you know, Paul's back training every day. You've seen the videos, and the plan is to get fit in 2021, come back in 2022, win another world title, bring havoc to the super heavyweight division of the K1 mixed martial arts. Yeah, you know, I spoke to Alex Reid, who, when Paul's going to open his gym, Alex, obviously I spoke to Paul. He's a bit of a legend in mixed martial arts. Obviously he's known to, you know, for who he married, and he was in the papers the other week. He's in Pentonville prison now. He was in the national press. He gets out next week. I'm going to spend a lot of time with Alex over the next couple of weeks. I'm writing his book, and Alex is fascinated with Paul Venice and what he did in the sport, and Paul is the same with Alex. You know, a lot of my heroes are footballers and boxers, and Paul won't mind me saying this, but he's a big Alex Reid fan. So obviously Paul and his brother, best friend Dave Wright, business partner and all this kind of thing, they're gonna open a gym, some kind of Cobra Kai, some kind of mixed martial arts, where it's not only going to be for you know, it's going to be for everything: your boxing, your karate, jiu-jitsu, judo, but the plan is to bring some kind of discipline to people who've lost their way in life, and Alex is going to come and open the gym for Paul. And when Paul fights again, or if he fights again, which I think he will, I spoke to Alex and he said, you know what? He said, I'll come and I'll walk him to the ring. So that's the plan, is Paul Venice to come back, to get into shape, because he's one of these people, Paul, who's, you can look at him and you can see he's clearly, like, these are muscles from Brussels. He's you know, he's got muscles on top of his muscles, but he's got there's a disorder, I think, called body morphia or something like that. And I think my good friend Paul has it, because, you know, I've watched footage of him, and I've said, oh, let me put that on the channel and put this on your channel, Paul. And Paul's been like, nah, I'm too fat, I'm too slow, I'm not. And I'm like, what are you on about? You know, you're looking great, but obviously Paul's one of them people who I was talking to Decker Heggie not long back, and he said he has the same thing, where you can look the mutt's nuts, the dog's bollocks, but in your head, you're still not quite there, or you look at yourself as a fat person, and you know, that's the plan. And so basically, Paul's gonna train. So he's only 35, so the plan is to train to next year, what we're in now, May, and come back. And just go through the heavyweight division like butter with a hot knife, and just knock everyone out. Put his gym on the map. Get Paul Venice the journey, you know, because he's getting a lot of his inbox has been going absolutely crazy these last couple of weeks since he appeared on the Sean Atwood show, and quite, you know, right, you know. Good luck to him. He deserves it. He's if you look at, I mean, Sean Atwood, when you do them podcasts, you put yourself in the line of fire, and you're there to be shot down. And it's very rare that you know, there's trolls this day and age. But if you look at Paul's video, everyone is just literally like, what a guy, what a down to earth, humble guy. You know, everyone's seen the videos of T-Side's Walter Mitty, absolute bullshitter, big smelly bullshitter. I won't mention his name, big scruffy smelly bullshitter, but he's like knocking 10 men out. And Paul Venice is not like that. He walks the walk and he can talk the talk, but he doesn't need to bullshit. He's not like the bullshitter T-Side Walter Mitty. So he's refreshing, and he's someone who he's genuine. I was talking the other week, and he was sending me, he'd probably go mad for me for saying this, but I'm not really bothered. Paul was sending me things of these African kids that he's been helping. He's been, and paying monthly. And I said, Paul, how come you've never told anyone? He said, I don't do it for that. There's people out there and they do things they'll give to charity, but they'll be videoing it. That's not what Paul Venice is about. So he's got a heart of gold. But obviously he was a bad guy, and I'm not, and he's had his addictions. He knows his own faults, and he knows. And I spoke to Sean Atwood the other week, and I said to Sean, I told you, I knew how massive he was going to be, and Sean was like, yeah, massive. And we've put his audio book up, and the audio sales have went absolutely crazy. So he's someone that I think's got a big future if he just stays active, and it's a pleasure to work with him. He's genuine and humble, and it's not even about business with Paul Venice. If I can help him and do it, I'll do it as a friend. And my wife's the same with him. But anyway, the comeback is real. It's on. It's it's because he's had a lot of injuries, Paul Venice. He's he had 32 fights, 32 wins, 31 knockouts, and he, by Paul's own admission, he said, listen, I beat fighters who were better than me, but I had this kind of tenacious rage where I was prepared to walk through and take all the blows, and he's broke his hands, he's had all kinds of in his book he talks about having a back injury, being basically brought on by his ecstasy taking days. So he's still very much, he's not past it yet, he's only 35, but he has got his cuts and bruises, and he's at, so yeah. But listen, 35 in a sport of mixed martial arts, K1, whatever you want to call it, is still quite young. And Paul Venice knows that there's basically, how can I put it? There's an unwritten legacy there for Paul Venice. And what's Paul Venice's? He does what he does best, and that's coming back to knock people out. And he's going to come back, and he's going to put South Bank on the map. He's putting Middlesbrough on the map. He's putting his gym on the map, and he's going to come back. And I can see another world title in him. And when that time does come, when he's back training, and I'm going to be behind him selling tickets, and because he's a likable person anyway. Listen, he doesn't need me. Paul Venice had his massive hordes of fans, which he was a promoter's dream. He really was. He really, if anyone who's watching this who used to go to Paul's fights, I mean, I've watched them on YouTube, and obviously Paul's told me, and he would sell ridiculous amounts of tickets. And you can put that to, you can put that down to, you can put it down to people wanting, liking exciting heavyweights who knock people out. Because if you go to a Paul Venice fight, it's heavyweights anyway. There's obviously, there's always 9 times out of 10 in a heavyweight there's a knockout. And but to be honest, with Paul, he's likable. And it's like Ricky Hatton. He was extremely likable in his. It's the same with a friend of mine, Josh Warren. He's, most of the people going to watch Josh, they're his friend, and that's the same with Paul. He would go there and drop tickets off himself you know, he's not someone full of himself who looks down on people, and that radiates out of him. And obviously that's why he comes across so well, as he has done to the tens of thousands to the Sean Atwood podcasts. But yeah, to put it in a nutshell, the camp is back. He's back training. He's back, started taking pads, and obviously as the training progresses, the sparring, myself and Fat Cat Productions, we're going to be making a little Paul Venice YouTube documentary, and just you know, he's back, and he's probably had to pull a few strings with his Mrs. Sammy, because, you know, being in camp and being on diets and, you know, not being able to eat his takeaways like he does, he can be quite ratty and horrible to live with, as I imagine, you know. But you know, he's still young enough, and as I said to him the other day, in a couple of years it'll be all over, and you know, in 5 years time, he'll be in his 4.5 years time, he'll be in his 40s, and he'll think, I should have come back. When now's the opportunity to come back and to come and just knock a load of people out and win another world title for Middlesbrough, because you know, Middlesbrough's probably not been blessed with lots of world-class athletes. But you've had the Jonathan Woodgates and your Stewie Downings. They were world-class, but they were really they were injury ravaged, you know. And Cornelius Carr, who was a big hero for mine growing up, he was a British champion. He fought Steve Collins for the WBO world title. Failed, come up short. Many people thought he won. He did win a version of a world title, which was the WBF, I think it was. But, you know, it's I can't really think of many like really truly world-class athletes from Middlesbrough. I was a big fan of John Pearce. There you go, signed picture of John. He was world-class, albeit he won the Commonwealth title. And yeah, I would just love to see Paul come back and really, you know, you know, he's got, as he said, he's got unfinished business in the sport of K1. I don't really know a great deal about it, but any gladiator, any warrior who steps in, you know, the ropes, and it's certainly been the bravest thing I ever did. You know, I was a school kid and boxed for a few years, and you know, when you kind of go in that arena and there's hundreds watching you, and you're looking at your opponent, any second now you think, shit, any second now, me and my opponent, we're going to run at each other and smack each other. You know, that takes, regardless of what level, it takes a huge amount of courage to do that. You know, so for Paul Venice to actually get to like the pinnacle of a absolutely brutal, ruthless sport where everything, you know, is kind of anything goes, then yeah, it's to be commended, you know. So, but anyway, he's back training. I don't think he's started his diet yet, but he's you know, he's getting on a bit, and he's just back every day training, maybe 5-6 days a week. I think there's life in the old dog yet, and you know, I just want to, when the time comes, when, you know, maybe next year or whatever, when he is going to be competing again and going for British titles and European or world titles or whatever, I'm sure most of you all who are watching this, because if one thing, if you know Paul Venice, or you're familiar with him, is he's likable, and I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that because I've got a business interest in him. I'm not, you know, and most of you watch this will know him. You'll be knowing him far better than I know him, and you know, there's not many people who dislike. That's what I found with him. You know, when people are out there, and there's a lot of bullshit going on the internet at the minute with men near enough old age pensioners doing videos back and forth, and it's embarrassing. And you know, the thing is, a lot of narcissists, sociopaths, back and forth. And the thing is with Paul Venice is he's a lot of people. He's very, very well liked in Middlesbrough. You know, and if someone like him would take a dislike, then because he's not. I know. To look at him, you think, oh, he's big and scary, and which he is. But he's not actually like that. And to be in his company, you could take the piss out of him all day. He's quite soft, although he looks kind of rather scary. He's kind of a big cuddly teddy bear, really. We put a picture on yesterday of him with his mum and one of his belts, and he was just like, you know, he's just like a little mammy's boy. But no, he's likable, and you know, listen, many of you will be watching this who, as I said, you'll know Paul Venice far more than I do, and you'll agree with him in South Bank, and you'll know the guy's worth his weight in gold, as is, you know, close friend of mine, Neil Booth, absolutely loves him, and yeah, you know, I remember I got a message 4 years ago from a guy called Mark Fitzgerald, when I first started doing books. I didn't know who Paul Venice was. I'd seen him in the Gazette for, you know, a few things, and he messaged me and he said, Jamie, there's a lad from our estate called Paul Venice. You should write a book on him. And I was like, you know, at the time I was kind of going for the I suppose the household names like your Roy Shaws, your Paul Sykes. And you know, funny enough, that was like 4 years. I think that was like years before I even kind of met Paul Venice. And I look back at that message and I think, yeah, Mark Fitzgerald, if you're watching, you're absolutely right. And you know, I think there's a lot to be commended with Paul's story, and also he's going to be going to schools. He's going to be Home House Prison. They watched the Sean Atwood the other week, and they basically said, yeah, let's get the ball rolling. So that's Home House sorted. Middlesbrough College, and there's another one, Palliser Park Community. And I think, you know, for any young kids out there troubled and think it's that kind of life, you think it's cool or glamorous, you know, like the Lee Duffy, all this kind of story. It's anything but, you know. And Paul Venice is probably he's probably one of a few that hasn't ended up dead, doing life in prison, or, you know, because that's the way he was going to go. And thankfully, when he got to the age of about 26, he got to the age, I think it was like 26, which is obviously when Lee Duffy died, God rest him, when Paul actually thought, you know what, this is not fun, this is not fun being in prison for years and being away from my family, and people out there want to shoot him, people attempting to murder him, running him over, coming out of a house drunk, ran him over, and to this day, Paul doesn't even know who attempted to murder him. You know, all them kind of things that, you know, if you put him in a room full of prisoners, you know, it's gonna be powerful, it's gonna be thought-provoking, because Paul was as low, if not worse, than anyone who he's gonna go meet. You know, there was people that, when Paul was drug ravaged, and people were like, oh, fucking hell, there's Paul Venice, and cross over the road, and he was, you know, frail, just this kind of skinny, half the man he once was, with this big head. You know, but even I spoke to a taxi driver not long back, and he said, you know something? He said, I used to fucking hate when he used to come in my taxi. But he said, you know what? He said, he always had respect. Even when when he was down and out, and you think, oh shit, there's Paul Venice. He always had that kind of respect, you know, to people, and that radiates out, and you know, that, and I put that down to Paul being brought up by really good parents. So if you're watching, Zenga and Paul Jr., yeah, I didn't mean that comment earlier. But listen, yeah, the Paul Venice come back. Did someone say come back? Because it's going to happen. So South Bank's very own knockout machine, world champion, British, Commonwealth. Where do you? Yeah, we could go on forever. You know, Paul was a fighter who He didn't get paid for overtime. He was no nonsense. He was just basically, you know, he went to the Gladiators arena and he stood in front and he was like, "You can punch me and I'm going to punch you, and I know I'll be able to take yours, but you won't be able to take one of mine." And yeah, you know, one thing I have actually done these past couple of months is I've Googled Paul Venice K1. And when Paul was in his prime, when he was like coming into the sport, there's a lot of forums of like the K1, you know, the mixed martial arts, and this is where Alex Reid was telling me. And there's some unbelievable reviews that in that kind of kickboxing world, there's people saying, "Oh, there's a kid from Middlesbrough called Venice. He's just an absolute knockout machine who's terrorizing the heavyweight division. Look out for him." You know, this is all like on forums 6-7 years ago. But if you Google it, you know, it's really interesting to read, and I think he can get that back. And myself and some of my close friends, Alan Thompson, footballer, loves Paul Venice. We were at his house a couple of weeks back, and he said, "Jamie, what a guy, what a character." And yeah, I'm getting a bit jealous. I was like, never mind Paul Venice, what about me? Do you know, I'm a big Celtic fan. But yeah, it's impossible to dislike Paul Venice if you actually know him. But listen, guys, Paul Venice, he's talking about a comeback, and it's going to happen. So yeah, Paul Venice, come back, watch his space, because this guy has got his he's got the passion back, he's got the fire in his belly, he's got his mojo back, and he's coming back to knock a lot of people out, put Middlesbrough on the map, South Bank on the map, and just basically come back to in what was rightfully is. Do you know, in the animal kingdom, when there's that Neanderthal mentality and there can only be one, you know, the gorillas, and when they're staring at you, and in the gorillas, in that, where they stare at another gorilla and it's classed as confrontational. So Paul Venice is coming back into that kind of macho heavyweight world, if you like, to go staring at people, and the guy wants more world titles. So yeah, good luck, Paul Venice. Big love, mate. Myself, Warcry Publishing will be backing you, and I know when the time's right, we'll sit down together and we'll be writing the Straight Out of South Bank biography, because that is one hell of a story as well when the time's done. So right, don't forget to click and subscribe to this channel, guys. God bless. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Paul Venice, he's what's he on? At Paul Venice Free. He's on Twitter. He's on Instagram, and he's on Facebook at Paul Venice Actor. He's got a page. Myself, Warcry Publishing, will run that. Paul runs it as well. If anyone wants to message Paul directly, you can get him on that. I don't read the messages. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me, guys. Paul Venice is going to come back. Did someone say come back?